No, I was just checking the emojis.
Great. I'm gonna maybe turn your audio down ever so slightly here. I'm just balancing the audio on my end, but welcome everyone who's watching on the recording and everyone who's joined in today. Today is Wednesday, April 10th, and this is one of our weekly community edition setup sessions that we're hosting, teaching the community how to create and host Community Edition, the open source version of Hubs. Uh, and we're running these basically all the way until the Mozilla Run Hub's project shuts down on May 31st. Um, for today, we're covering some odds and ends, but my plan for today is to touch on the Tenor API issue that we identified a couple weeks ago, a couple of cores issues that we encountered last week and have been chatting about in the Discord this week. And then I want to go into how to use Docker Desktop to basically run the render HCCE script and bypass any errors that you might get if you're on Linux or Windows, basically any operating system that the render hcce.sh script is not written for. And then I want to basically just go through the process of hosting your own version of Reticulum, Dialog, and Spoke. In previous videos, we've gone through the process of hosting your own version of Hubs, and I want to show you how to host the other three main repos on your own so that you can be, in many ways, completely independent of Hubs if you would like to be. Not Hubs, I should say, completely independent of Mozilla if you would like to be. And then lastly, maybe we'll have time to touch a little bit more on persistent volumes, but I think going through all three of those repos is going to take up a decent amount of time, especially if we're waiting on GitHub actions to complete. Um, cool. Let me go ahead and share my screen and then we can dive into the Tenor API issue. Awesome. So if y'all will recall, I am working with an instance that we've been upgrading from the quick start guide. For anyone watching my screen, that is this guide, the quick start case study on Google Cloud. So we've kind of been, over the last few weeks of these sessions, we've been building up an instance, getting it closer and closer to a full production instance, but starting out from this quick start guide. And a couple of weeks ago, we showed how you can add uh, Sketchfab and Tenor API keys in your configuration, uh, not your configuration, in your YAML file. And what we ran into was this issue where basically on my devmoran.com instance, if I went into a scene, I went into a scene, clicked place, and then search for GIFs, I would basically get no search results. But Sketchfab seemed to be working just fine after that time, but we were hung up on some errors with the Tenor API issue. And I looked a little bit deeper into the Tenor documentation, and the issue was we had created an API key uh, for Tenor's V2 API. Where's the documentation here? So going to the legacy V1 documentation, well, maybe I'll start here with how I kind of identified that this was an issue. I went and looked in Reticulum and looked for where it was calling the Tenor API issue. So uh, to kind of walk from the very beginning, in my hubs room here, I go to place, I click GIF, And then anything I enter in this search bar updates the query that is sent to Reticulum, and then Reticulum asks the Tenor API. So Reticulum sits between my personal connection here in the room and the Tenor API. And so I needed to look on Reticulum for where that was being asked. And here I see I'm actually on a different branch, git checkout master. Okay. And so it's in this mediasearch.ex file. Ex is short for Elixir. Reticulum is written in the Elixir programming language. And it's around line 297, this media search query where the source is tenor. And I can show you also where this is on the Hub's client, but basically it just sends this message to Reticulum saying tenor and then passes in the query parameters. But here we can actually see where Reticulum is communicating with tenor. And here, are y'all able to see my screen okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Here we can actually see the URL that's calling it. It's api.tenor.com v1. And as soon as I saw this, I realized that that might have been the source of our problem, is the discrepancy between v1 and v2. Here I can see going to just Tenor's GIF API, there's a legacy v1 documentation. If I go to, where did I go to? Okay, search down. Oh yeah, get a Tenor API key. And if I went here, it basically said to create additional API keys, please navigate to our v2 application. So I'm pretty sure this means that it's not possible to create new API keys for the v1 version of Tenor. The ones that we created last time using the Google dashboard here, remember I just kind of clicked this Tenor API key after I'd signed in. I'm not on the right account right here. Oops. Anyway, when I clicked this Tenor API key, it created a API key for the v2. If you can look in the docs here, all of them mention this v2 one. So this is an issue if you want to use the default, but since later we're going to be going through how to deploy your own custom version of Reticulum, I thought we would try and basically upgrade from v1 to v2. I tested it out a little bit. I didn't fully get it, but I think we might be able to get it over the finish line and when we're going through that. So we'll go a little bit more in depth here in a minute, but that's why we were having that Tenor API issues. It's no longer possible to create API keys for v1. I think API keys for v1 still function, surprisingly. But you will need to upgrade Reticulum to v2 if you want to continue to use it. Any questions about that? No?
No.
Wonderful. Okay. The next thing I wanted to touch base on were these cores issues that we were having. Now, here's my instance. So I upgraded this instance to the latest version of Reticulum, and without adding any, cores proxy rules in the Reticulum config map, things are working just fine now after we've posted a fix with Reticulum.io. So let me bring up my Discord here. Let me make sure I've only showing what I want to show. But basically, Rithik, you helped identify kind of what this issue was, that one of the latest releases to Reticulum was creating this issue. So you, in this fix, you recommended we go back to this older version of the Reticulum image, and also to put some extra configurations in the Reticulum config map, those content security policies that we've done. Hub Manuel basically created a patch that this user had contributed that fixes things, at least for me. On the latest Reticulum server now, I don't have any issues with this uploads prod reticulum.io file. I wanted to ask Ritik, have you been able to test the patch?
No, I couldn't test the patch, but there was someone else in my DM, so he tested it out and it worked very well for him. So I can confirm that earlier it wasn't working for him, and like after the patch, it started to work for him.
Awesome. Well, good to know. I know that was kind of a leftover from last week. Was this issue is just anyone making a new community edition instance with the latest reticulum should not experience those cores issues. And we were seeing issues in Spoke, but we were also seeing some issues in the import content tool. Yeah, so Ritik, I was really testing for the import content tool and Spoke, and both work just fine now, which is good to see.
Cool.
Awesome. Let's see what's next. So before we dive into kind of publishing our own versions of Reticulum, Dialog, and Spoke, first I wanted to show how you know when we're setting up our instance, just using vanilla Community Edition, we have this render HCCE file that we populate with all of our values, and then we run that script to be able to use it. Now, this is, let's open this up. Um, a lot of what's in here, especially, anything base 64, a lot of this code might have issues depending on your development environment. So, Alex happened to actually contribute a really wonderful pull request that we haven't merged yet, but that adds the ability to create a Docker file to run this script in a Docker container, which uh, gets rid of some of the different operating system level unique issues that you might run into. So that is in Cloud GitHub. If we go to pull request right here, it's this one from Doganal, who's Alex Griggs, the creator of um, the Helm chart. But he added this and some documentation here, and we can see from his commits or sorry, actually from the files, that he added this Docker file that's relatively short. But if people want to use this method, here are the steps that you would take. In your Community Edition folder, you would basically just create a new file called Docker file. No extensions, it's just Docker file, and then copy and paste that code from the from that pull request, or hopefully in the future it will be fully merged and you won't need to do it. Um, but we can see here that I've already done this method, but I'll walk you through the steps of doing it again. So we need to create our Docker file, or if you're watching this video later down the line, there might already be a Docker file in place since we may have merged this pull request by then. And then we basically need to make sure that we have Docker installed on our device. I'm using Docker Desktop. I don't necessarily think you have to use Docker Desktop, um, but yeah, I'll be demonstrating how to use it with Docker Desktop. And going back to Alex's information here, first we need to build our image. Let's see this here. Let me make sure I'm in my right directory. So I've just changed my terminal to the Community Edition directory. Whoop, a little too big. And then we need to type in this command to build So it's docker build dot t dot dash t hubs ce builder latest. And since I'm using Docker Desktop, I have that open. I can see that I'm creating this image for hub ce builder. That's built now. And then I need to actually run the application within there that allows, if we look in our Docker file, basically we have the app, and then we can access render hcce.sh from within that app. So the command for that is docker run dash dash rm dash it dash v, and then our present working directory for Community Edition. So I'm actually going to open up my Finder here just to make it a little bit easier. I have this file for our setup session. Then I'm just going to drag and drop that present working directory. And then from Alex's thing, we need a colon, a forward slash, and then the app to let us know where we're directing that to. Great. And yes, I think then we need to tell it to go to this hub CE builder container that we have staged from our previous command. So previous command, we made the image, and now we need to tell it to execute this, basically render hcce.sh from within that image. So I'll run that. Oop, it's going to ask me if I want to allow it. Oh, and here is one of the issues we need to give permission. So I think it's plus X. And then I'm going to copy the pathway to the file, and then render hcce.sh. Why didn't that work?
There isn't an app folder inside.
Thought I
No, no, sorry.
maybe I don't need to specify the app folder. Sorry. Maybe it's also, it looks like it's maybe having trouble because it's split between. I just did this. Let me look through my history here. I had this open in another window.
Maybe for permission denied, we can also use sudo to get the permissions to run the file.
Yes. Uh, let's try that again. I'm just looking back through my previous work here. Okay, so let's try it with sudo real quick, but I think I do need to change the permissions on the file directly. Actually, let me just go up real quick to see if I can find it. Sorry, folks, you're just watching me. Oh, here we go. Oh, it's because I had the parentheses around my pathway, which I didn't want. So if you can see this command here, where it differed from the previous one was I had the pathway in quotations. So it should be fixed now. I'm going to run my command again. And it's still having some trouble. Why is that?
That's in HCC setup sessions, and this one is in setup sessions April 13. The folders are different.
You are correct on that. Thank you.
Uh, the one where we are doing the ch mod and
Yes. I'm using the incorrect directory. You're right about that. Where am I right now? That's a good question. I think it's in documents. Okay, so I'm actually in here. Sorry about that, folks. Um, so let's do this again. Dr. run rm it minus v, and then my present working directory. :/app, and then hub ce builder latest. Great. Finally got it to work. So we can see that this has outputted similar to uh, what you would experience just running that, but by using Docker, you'll hopefully bypass any of those operating system specific issues. Now, in my HCCE YAML file, after running this, since we're not using Rithik's pull request, we will have to do a couple of things here to make sure that we uh, to remember to include before we actually apply our specification. The first is the HA proxy default certificate. So let's actually look up cert. I'm just going to scroll down, and this is on mine, it's line 1233. So want to make sure to comment that out since I'm applying this to a instance that has already been created and we've already assigned certificates for. Remember, do not comment this out if it is your first time applying the configuration and you have not yet set up your certificates. But since I have, I'm going to comment it out. And then we also need to look up hostname, host path, sorry. And we are using the persistent volumes that we set up in the past, so we'll comment this out and type persistent volume claim. Then claim name. This one's Reticulum, so it should be ret pvc. Then we'll comment it out for Postgres as well. This one is called PGSQL PVC. I'm using Looker, but we can already tell that I have set up these. If I go down to storage and I look at my PVCs, I've already set these up and used separate files, this persist PGSQL YAML file and this persist ret file to set up those PVCs. Now I just need to make sure that they are referenced in my HCCE YAML for the PGSQL pod and for the Reticulum pod. So now that I've updated those three things, the two mentions of our persistent volume claims and the default HA proxy certificate, now I can actually apply my file here. So kubectl apply-f hcce.yaml, and then my namespace, HCCE, Mike Moran. I don't think this is actually going to change anything. I think my specification is exactly the same as before, but after applying, Reticulum is going through an update. I wonder what I changed on Reticulum here. I'm curious. Let me look through to make sure I didn't change any important secrets on here. No, everything looks the same, but I do see that my Reticulum pod is rolling out these changes. So we'll see if in a moment we'll verify if everything completed correctly. I'll move this out. I'm just waiting for, and in fact, I might have to disconnect. Might be waiting for me to disconnect before deleting that. Okay, so after I disconnected my browser session, it deleted the extra Reticulum pod that was running. So now if I connect, go to, shouldn't have any issues here. I'd also just be taking a moment to get spun back up. Everything looks to be okay. Let's go to this featured scene, make sure. Huh, I'm running into some sort of strange issue here.
I think I've seen this issue several times, and this is related to dialogue pod. Maybe there we can find some additional data in the logs.
Good call. So I'm looking in here. I do know one thing that I did change was I think well, I had been using an older version, sorry, a custom version of Reticulum. In preparation for this meeting, I went through the process of deploying a custom version of Reticulum, and now it's reverted back after running that. I reverted back to Mozilla Realities. So I don't know if that would create any sort of issues. I'm tempted also to just kind of delete all of my pods and let them come back. I'm gonna try that real
Yeah.
quick just to make sure that we're going through everything, and I'm going to disconnect my current sessions. Okay, all of my pods seem to be back online. Let me go back to devmarian.com and make sure.
By the way, Michael, we have run the render HCC sh file again. So typically our OpenSSL will generate new keys for us, uh, which will
Mm-hmm.
be different from the ones.
Yeah, so
So
maybe
to
I'll sign out and sign back in.
I think you have to do SSL again for your certificates by running the CDV file.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. They should still be valid. Um, I mean, are you able
Uh,
to go to devmarian.com? You should be able to.
okay, let me check. Yeah, I'm able to.
Yeah, and no certificate issues?
Right, no certificate issues.
Then we should be just fine.
Uh,
I'm pretty sure I know what the error is, and it has to do with some scenes that I uploaded but then deleted the data, but they're still referenced in the admin panel. So I'm wondering if it's just a scene issue. In fact, I might just go ahead and go to find
yeah,
avatars and scenes, grab a new scene, and upload it. I think the default scene might be having some trouble. So let's do the Hello WebXR meeting hall. I'll import that. Import should go just fine. Okay. So now if I go to approve scenes, let me try and open with this scene. It should work. Yep. Okay. I was able to get in just fine. I think I deleted both of these. Let me actually just remove them completely from here. I think having them as default, tagged as default scenes is what's creating an issue with that create room. So let's go back to scenes here and fully remove them.
cool.
So I should want that one, and then I want this one gone. This one gone. Okay, so we're in. We have long way of getting there, but we've successfully updated our reticulum. Uh, not reticulum, sorry. We've successfully published our file using Docker to run render HCCE. Jua, I think that's a question for you. Did that make sense how we stepped through the process of using Docker to run render HCCE? I believe this would help you with the issues you were encountering.
Mm,
Jua may be AFK.
yeah,
Well, if Jua comes
yeah,
back,
but yes, but it definitely was an easy step because like we see that for installing several different packages and tools, it takes a lot of time, and this
mhm,
helps a lot with just installing Docker and getting the file running.
great. Let's actually go to publishing our own version of Reticulum now. I think that would be a good next step here. So we're going to follow basically the same process uh, as with as we did with what's it called with hubs in some previous weeks. But I'll show you the kind of the key difference here as we're stepping through things. Let me check one thing before we hop into that. Okay, cool. I will go to, I guess first let's start with having we're going to be using Docker Hub and GitHub Actions for this. So let's make sure we have our Docker Hub set up first. So I'm using a personal Docker Hub, and I've set up this repo called CE Reticulum. And this is the one that I'm going to be using for. So I just created a repository, called it CE Reticulum, and this is the one that we'll use for publishing our custom version of Reticulum. Now I'm going to go to my fork of hubs. So this is my, oh, sorry, I should go to Reticulum, not to Hubs. So this is a fork of Reticulum that I've taken from Mozilla's Reticulum. And let's go ahead and start just by copying down, cloning down a version of this onto our device. So I'm going to actually delete my old version here. Then I'm going to cd git clone and then clone this version of Reticulum. Now I have gone ahead and added something. I did it directly into through GitHub, but I'll walk you through the process that I did to add it. I went ahead and added the code for the workflow for the GitHub Actions workflow that we'll be using. I've done it here in cebuilder2.yaml. You can find this code. It's referenced in the documentation that oh, here's the documentation. At the very bottom of this quick start guide, very bottom, in the steps for deploying custom apps, I reference this code, which exists on my fork. And so you can copy this and reuse it. Now, let's look at that here. I've made two important customizations. Number one, this name here, by default, the way that this YAML file works, this name should be exactly equivalent to the Docker Hub name for your repo. So CE Reticulum here matches the name of this workflow right here. That doesn't have to be the case. You can, a little bit further down in our code, you could change that. For instance, you would basically just change, you could hard code it, or you could create some other input, like if we wanted to do inputs dot, I guess we could call it inputs dot workflow if we wanted to, or inputs dot registry name. But right now, the name of our workflow is going to correspond to our image name here. Any questions about that or why that is? Cool.
Cool.
Um, um, so that was the first customization we made. The second was by default, this code that I reference, from our quick start guide, it points to the Docker file for hubs. It does not point to the Docker file for Spoke, the Docker file for Dialog, or the Docker file for Reticulum. So we'll need to update this. And we can tell that it's pointing to the one for hubs if we look, basically anytime there's a Docker file in your file structure, it's going to pick that up as a Docker file. But we can see here this tracks to ret page origin Docker file, which is the build that we reference when we're building with hubs. However, if we look through Reticulum, we don't see ret page origin Docker file. All we see here is Turkey Docker file. So this is the Docker file that we're going to want to point to. And we can see in here I have updated from ret page origin Docker file to Turkey Docker file since I'm in Reticulum. So that's the second big edit that we've made. Cool. So we have this set up in our Reticulum. If we go to workflows, we can see that's also in here in the master branch. There's one more thing to set up to make sure that we are ready to deploy. If I go back to my file here, we can see that in order to deploy, I'm going to need a Docker username and a Docker password. Now, the username is with inputs, which means as we're running the workflow with GitHub Actions, it's going to ask us for that Docker Hub username. The Docker Hub password needs to be set in your repository secrets. So I've showed this a couple weeks ago, but in my fork of Reticulum under settings, if I go to secrets and variables and then actions, we can see I've set up this Docker Hub password with the value that I can get directly from Docker Hub. On Docker Hub, I can get that by going to account, and then to security. And here, basically, you can create a new access token. It will give you that secret that you'll want to use. For this, I'm using HCC Reticulum, that token. So going back to GitHub, using this, I've already preset this, but you'll want to do that before attempting to publish. Great. Now, before we publish, let's actually try and use our publishing here to solve a problem. And the problem I want to solve is the error that we ran into a couple weeks ago with the Tenor API was that we weren't able to see any console errors in our Reticulum logs when there was an issue. So I want to add some logs to that and then publish to see if we can get a better idea of what the issue is. Now we're pretty sure it's this issue because of the difference between Tenor API v1 and the Tenor API v2, but let's just add some logs just in case here. So I'm going to go to media search. Great, and remember I'm looking at this function right here. And if I look a little bit further down, we can see in line 317, basically there's no, if there is an error trying to query this API endpoint, there isn't any console log. So I want to update that. And in Elixir, I can do io.puts and then an error message. What should our error message be today?
The exception returned.
Oh, I was thinking of something fun, but exception returned. I was thinking of like, oh my goodness, no gifts or something. But
Oh, I was assuming that you were returning an actual exception, which would contain a meaningful value.
that would be useful. I don't know. I actually don't know what it will return, what the response will
No,
be if there is. But
no error code or anything.
let's see here. Let's maybe say because we do have, I think a little bit further down, we have an error message. I don't know. Actually, we don't have an error message here. We should probably add one here as well. This is another else case, but how about here we know this will be if there's an error with the query or with something. So let's say um, error bad query or API key issue. And then let's also put one under this else statement. Let's do io.puts and let's say error, how did I format it up here? Error, and let's actually also say bad tenor query or API issue. Error with tenor API key. Okay, so we made these customizations. Now let's try and publish them. So I'm going to create my own branch for this. So I'll do git checkout -b to create a branch on checkout, and then I'll call it custom reticulum April 10. So I've switched that branch. I'm going to add my edits. I'm going to commit them. Initial commit for console logs on tenor errors. Then git push to my custom git push origin custom reticulum April 10th. Cool. We'll go back to my repo. I go to actions, refresh. First, let me just verify that the code is in here. Yeah, I do see a custom reticulum April 10th. Now I want to try, I'll select my CE reticulum workflow, run workflow. I'll select my branch that I'm working with, custom Reticulum April 10th. Code path I can leave blank unless I've specified a specific code path. But then I'll do my hubs user Mike Moran. And since we're using the workflow name to specify the image that it's published to, I don't have to change anything here. I can just go ahead and specify Mike Moran, and that workflow name will take care of itself. And I'll run workflow. Okay. Great, and I can see a new one has been queued here. Let's open this and look inside. This one goes pretty fast. It only takes about 5 minutes compared to the Hubs client build. Sorry, folks, I'm going to take a quick drink of water. Sorry for that, just while we're waiting. Imaginer, have you started working with a community edition instance yet?
No, I haven't yet. It's getting higher on the to-do list, though.
Gotcha.
Now that the import add-on is pretty much finished up.
Nice. Did you talk about that during yesterday's session? Blender add-on session?
The import, the Blender add-on? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Manuel's thinking about reviewing that hopefully by the end of the week, and so that will be good.
Awesome. While this is publishing, let's go ahead and talk about the solution that will publish next. So we know that there's an issue here. I did a little bit of looking through kind of what we might do to change this from V1 to V2. And looking through the docs, I'm pretty sure everything about our query, we can look at our query here, which basically takes a queue, what our query is, what we've typed into the search bar, and then some hard-coded content filters, page size, and then our API key. So all of this can stay the same. I think I looked at all of this here. And then I think we just need to adjust our URL and one of the terms here. So I'm going to go back to the TensorGIF here. Oh, I want the new documentation here. I'm going to go to endpoints. And so I think we can basically keep search here. So I'm just going to copy the new URL and paste it in here. So https tenor.googleapis.com v2, sorry, not trending. We'll put that under search. And then for trending, I saw here that trending looks maybe to have changed. I think trending terms is what we'll want to update that one to. So I'm going to copy not just the different URL, but we're changing trending terms, trending to trending terms. So I'm going to try that to see if that fixes things. So we're still waiting. Oh, no, we're not waiting anymore. Our update has published. So let's go ahead and work on that. But in a moment, we'll build another update to test our hypothesis here. So going back to Docker Hub, let's check to see if our build is published. Yes, 13 is the one that we've just published. So let's go back to our HCCE YAML, and we're basically going to change this from Mozilla Reality to the one that I'm using. So I'll type Mike Moran, and that should be CE Reticulum and the tag will tag with the specific build that we're using here. So we'll use CE13 or tag 13 for this. Let me just make sure I've spelled everything correctly. So that's updated. I'm going to apply. I'm going to apply this new file here. So kubectl-f, apply -f, and then hcce-.yaml, and then my namespace, hcce-micmoran. Okay, so this is applying. I'm going to look through here, and I can immediately see that a new reticulum pod has spawned in. Let me make sure I'm disconnected here. So I'm going to wait for that to respawn so we can test this first build here. However, I hope it's not too confusing with me skipping around here. Just to save time, I want to go ahead and start the build process for our second test to see if we can actually fix and migrate from the V1 of the API to the V2. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started on GitHub for us to test shortly. So I'll add, I actually need to switch back. I'm going to add this. Say attempting to connect to Tenor API. V2, git push origin custom Reticulum, April 10th. Imaginer, do you know the lore of how they chose the name Reticulum? That was well before my time as a Hubs team member.
Not exactly. I mean, I know the lore behind how we got the duck logo, and that was basically when the code names were being created, they thought it was being taken from one style of things when it actually was another, so it just became a duck. And but I'm not exactly sure about Reticulum. I think it also had to do with the current book that they were referencing.
Gotcha.
Uh,
It's interesting. So my wife she's finishing up her veterinary school, and Reticulum happens to be like the first of the four of a cow's stomach, which is very interesting. Yeah,
oh,
it's a weird anatomy term, but it's the only other place that I can find a real reference to Reticulum.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyway, tangent aside, so I just launched another workflow to test, to go ahead and build an image for us to test here, but we've just finished rolling over our Reticulum pod with the latest update. Let's make sure that we're using that tagged 13 of our custom Reticulum. So I can go to deployments. I can go to edit, and in here I should see, oh, it's still looking to be pointing to the stable latest on Moz Reality. Let's check here as well. Mike Moran. Okay. I might have to, I don't know if it cached or anything, but let me go ahead and delete this Reticulum pod. Interesting. Yeah, let me try recycling all of my pods once more. Oh, whoops, I just deleted all of my deployments. Never mind. That was not what I meant to do. Let's go back and apply once again.
Uh,
So I think I accidentally deleted my deployments instead of my pods. So I'm going to try to apply my file again, hcc.yaml, then my namespace. Okay, coming back online. Sorry about that, folks. Just accidentally deleted that. But hey, it might actually also fix the error we were running into. So let me look at my deployment for Reticulum to see if it's referencing the correct pod now, or the correct version of Reticulum. Hmm. Yeah, it's still looking at the stable latest of Mozilla Reality's Reticulum, which is interesting. Um, I guess maybe I should change the image pull policy to always. Is that correct, Rithik? Is it capital always?
uh, yeah, A is capital in always, but I think like the config file should be updated here automatically without even changing the image pull policy.
Shouldn't it? It's a little bit weird why it isn't. kubectl apply dash f. Let's do it one more time.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking back at my Reticulum deployment to see if that fixed things. Hmm. Yeah, it's still looking at one of the older ones. I guess I could edit it directly in Spoke if I wanted to.
Looks like you have two reticulums there. Maybe one was being terminated?
One should be terminated. Maybe someone is connected to it. Usually, when a rollout happens, it tries to do it gracefully by keeping pods available for people who are currently connected to them. And then, is anyone here connected to devmoran.com?
Yeah, I had a spoke file open, so now I've closed it. Maybe
Sure.
that should fix.
Oh, yes, I see it terminating now. Does that make sense, Imagineer?
Yeah, so maybe now that one, now that that's finished, that's on the new one?
Hmm. Let me see. Oh, yes.
Oh yes.
I do see that in there. Good
Okay,
point.
cool. Sorry.
Well, that solved things. That was a good point, Imagineer, that it looked like maybe it was caching the old one since we were still had someone connected. I don't know if I go to deployments if it's going to be different, but I just looked in. Yeah, it's still not changed in deployments, but in the latest Reticulum pod, I do see the new logging here. So cool though. That looks promising. So let's try and connect to debmoran.com. Hopefully, we don't run into too many issues. It looks like we're almost running into some sort of certificate issue here. It's a little bit strange.
you actually detected it?
Okay. It looks like I may have lost my default scenes as I was doing all of that, but this should be enough for us to test the tenor API issue. So if our experiment has worked, if I go to GIF and I see no results, then I look in here, I should be able to see some sort of error. Okay, here we go. I don't know if y'all can see that on my screen, but I see a error, bad tenor query, or API key issue, which means that our deployment of Reticulum, our customized Reticulum, was successful, and we are getting a error log. So let's look back at what we did here. And it looks like an error right here. So we attempted to target, it was the old one, the V1, with a V2 API key, which was the issue. Now let's try our updated experiment. Remember, we just built another version of Reticulum with the V2 Tenor API endpoint. So, and if I look on Docker Hub, I should see a version 14. Yeah. So let's go ahead and just update Reticulum once more. And I'll, in my YAML file, I will reference tag 14, but instead of applying, well, actually, not instead of applying, I'm going to close out of all of my connections here, and then I'm going to apply my YAML file once more. Okay, so I see a new Reticulum pod being spawned in. If everyone else can, well, let me just look in here and see. Reticulum. Okay, I can see my mention of C Reticulum is now at 14. I'm just waiting for that second Reticulum pod to come back up, and then I'll test it. Okay. So if I join, create a room, I'm going to look at my new Reticulum pods logs here. And then I'm basically going to try a new API here, and we'll see if there's any sort of issues. No results. Great. Love to see it. But are there any sort of better logs here? Hmm. So now I don't see any specific logs related to this search issue. Whereas before, if I was getting if I was getting nothing, it was letting me know there. Wonder what a good.
What about that other error message you put in? What was that?
So this one was on this else statement. Let's look up here. Yeah, so this is basically testing if the API key is valid. So it's this is binary. When testing is binary API key, that's good. But this is basically testing just the formatting of the API key. Whereas I think the issue here is this function retry get until success. Which let me see if I can add some. Let me see if I can check out where this is coming from. Hmm. Just looking at the Elixir logs. Okay, so it's a function that's defined here in the HTTP utils. And it's basically saying use the retry until success. I'm trying to see if we can do some better logging here. In fact, I'm actually curious if it did work, and we should do some other logging here. Perhaps we should do some logging to see if there was a successful, if the API key was successful, and it's more everything after here. Um, I'm just going to add some pretty redundant logs here. Decode successful. Okay, let's try those and see what we get. So I'm going to add these again. Pushed up to my repo. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to run another workflow here with custom reticulum April 10th, McMoran, McMoran. Okay, so we'll see what comes of that in just a little bit. Rithik, any thoughts about how we might solve this issue?
Uh, for the tenor API,
Yes.
I think the shortest way would be to change the V1 to V2 to try to find out how we can change V1 to V2. That could be one uh, thing which we already have did,
Sure.
and uh,
Well, we shall see.
right. Like I'm not very sure about how we can solve this, but since we have changed it already to V2, but there might be some more things to do
Hmm.
or
Well,
might be.
let's see if we can get a better peek in here. It's probably just related to my misunderstanding of kind of the tenor API and going a little bit deeper in there and what kind of data it returns. My let's see, results is a array of suggested items. Let me check one thing here. I am curious if it is returning a proper array.
Uh,
Hmm.
Also, I found this documentation where it says that uh, we should change the subdomain as well. Uh, might be this we have already done. Yeah, upgrade to V2 domains. So it says like tenor.googleapis.com/v2. That is what they suggest.
Hmm. Change them to this. I think I've done that. Let's check our endpoint changes here. Search endpoint now supports sticker search through the search filter parameter. Include client key. Are they required though? These client key and country parameters.
No, doesn't seem like it. It says that majority are unchanged, but here are some exceptions for
Uh-huh.
how we are using it.
Client key. The only two required are.
The
Sorry, I'm
second point in response object and error changes might be of our use.
mm-hmm.
The key value changes for m- media is renamed to media formats.
Mm-hmm. In the
Let's
response
see where
object. The
yeah,
media
we can see where
fields.
we can try to see where the API is being hit and in our network tab and what is the response that we are
Mm-hmm.
getting. So if there is a key like that,
Let's see if we finished our build here. Yes, we have. Checking Docker Hub. Okay, we've upgraded to 15. Going to apply this YAML file. Should see a new Reticulum pod coming up. That's great. That new Reticulum pod has, should be 15. See, yep. Let's wait for that to come up to see if we, because I think you're right. It looks like some of the fields, the GIF object has been rebranded to the response object. Yeah, I'm wondering if it is being successfully returned. It looks like, Rithik, I can see when I test this in DevMoran. Let's make sure. So this is our
yeah,
new pod here. When I search for GIFs in the browser, I can see a error. I should be able to. Let's reload here. Sorry, one moment.
404.
Okay, I can see some error here. Let's look at our reticulum pod. Still no, still don't see any console logs about this. Hmm.
Uh,
So it's definitely not progressing well. Because I would have expected to have seen, if there was an error, I would have seen this, and if there was,
yeah. On line 328, the results key we are getting. Uh, yeah, map.get results. So is the API actually giving us a results object whenever the API is being called? That is what we would want to. Yeah, from here we can check.
yeah, good question. Hmm. I don't see any in here.
Okay, maybe at B1 docs. Let me search meanwhile for tenor B1 docs.
You know, I also do recognize I've said put instead of puts for these console logs, so I'm curious if that is the cause of our issue here. Sorry, folks, if that ends up being the case. All right, let's wait for that to update here to see if we can get a little bit more information. I feel like that could be a significant issue, having that error in the logging.
Yeah.
Um, let's also start to move on so we don't get too bogged down in this custom tenor API issue because we have demonstrated already how to deploy a custom version of Reticulum. Other folks can maybe figure out the tenor API issue later if they're interested, and we can see if this latest fix gives us any updates. I do want to go ahead and take a peek at Dialog and Spoke as well to see if we can get those set up very quickly and test them out. So maybe let's start with dialogue. Let's see if we can do a custom dialogue real quick. Not that. So I have dialogue open right here. I'm going to clone dialogue. Alrighty. And then in dialogue, I'm going to go ahead and actually, before cloning it, I'll go back to workflows and I'm going to make a custom workflow in here. To do this, I'm actually going to go to actions, going to go to new workflow, and one more important step here. I first need to create a fork of this, I'm realizing. So I'm going to create a fork of dialogue. I'm going to wait for it to open. I'm going to work with that one instead. So starting over. I've forked dialogue. I'm going to go to workflow, or I'm going to go to actions. I'm going to say I understand. I'm going to create a new workflow, and then skip this and set a workflow up for yourself. I'm going to call this cebuild.yml, and then I'll copy the same code that we used for our custom reticulum here. Oop, not that. Great. And here, let's call it CE dialog. I will want to make sure I know the proper, for here, the Docker file, I believe, is just Docker file. So I'm going to change Turkey Docker file just to Docker file. And then commit changes to create this workflow. Great, that's finished. Now I'm going to copy down, clone down my repo from my fork. If I look in workflows, I should see CE build in here with a name of CE dialog. So it should be good. I'm trying to think of a good, perhaps a good console here. Let me see if there are any existing console logs in here. Okay. In index.js, I see a few different console logs already happening. Let me check my dialog in here to make sure. Okay, here's our logger. So for app name, it's coming through as media soup demo server. I can see that in those logs. I'm just going to update that name that's hard coded. That'll be the simplest customization to do for dialog. So here, let's do media soup Mike Moran HCCE. We'll update it to that. Great. Now I'm going to change directory into dialog. I'm going to do git checkout -b to create a branch, and I'll call it custom dialog April 10th. Going to commit my changes. Dialog April 10th. Okay, so I've pushed that up. I now see that that has been added. Before I can deploy, I need to set up my Docker Hub repo here. So I'm going to create a new repo. We'll call it CE Dialog. I believe that's what we've called it in our Docker file here. Or not our Docker file, but our GitHub workflow. Yeah, CE Dialog. A custom version of dialog. Great. And then I just need to create a access token. I'm going to do this off screen so that y'all can see. Before I do so, I'll remind folks that's in settings, in secrets and variables, in actions, and then I'll want to create a new repository secret. I believe it's oh gosh, what is it? It is
Docker Hub PWD.
Docker Hub PWD. Thank you. So I'll put that in there, and then I'll off screen I will add my custom token value. Great. So I've created that repository secret. Now if I go to actions, I should be able to see CE dialog. I will run the workflow. I will select my branch, and then I will just put Mike Moran, and knows to target this Docker file. I'll run the workflow. We'll see. Let's repeat this process for Spoke as well, and then maybe we can try and update all three of our different applications at once. So I think I have Spoke right here. So we're going to follow the same process. First, I'm going to fork it. I don't know. Oh, I don't already have Spoke available. So I'm going to create my fork. I'm going to go to Actions. I'm going to go to New Workflow. Go to Skip This, set up a workflow yourself. We'll copy and paste this default code. I'm also going to call it CE Builder. I'm going to call this one CE Spoke, and then I need to point to the correct one. I believe for Spoke, this is actually just the same. I believe it is also ret page origin Docker file. So this one happens to be named the same, so I can keep that the same. I'm going to commit the changes. Great. Now I'm going to clone a local version. Awesome. I'm going to go into Spoke. For an update to this, let's see what kind of logs Spoke is giving us and see if we can just piggyback off some of those. So I'm going to go to Spoke, going to go to logs. I'll look for start worker processes. Rithik, have you, or Imaginer as well, have either of you updated Spoke recently and have a good idea of where I could throw in some customizations?
Yeah, so yes, Imaginer. Imaginer has been core contributor for Spoke.
Well, not exactly. I've made one pull request, so
Nice.
you could do that. I don't think it has been merged yet, and it's fairly simple. But
Sure. Let's check it out. Is this the E is not iterable?
Yes,
Oh, awesome.
that's something that's bugged. It caught a lot of people. So
Okay. So this is in
Really?
editor.js.
yeah.
Round line 427.
Yeah, even I got this issue.
Yep. Wait, hang on. You need to remove that previous line about materials
Whoops. Thank you.
and that ending curly brace.
Oh, I
So,
see.
so
So
what?
this is actually in here. I see.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and you don't need the ending. You don't need the. Oh yes, you do need
Yeah.
braces. So yeah, that's good.
Okay. Then the second
Yep.
one, this was just in GLTF exporter. Where's that? That's in editor GLTF. Okay. Lines 1591.
Yeah. So we're basically just making sure the GLTF remains a valid GLTF file there.
Gotcha. I think I've gotten it correct right here, except for
I think so. This makes
something's not happy with me.
maybe one too many braces.
I think actually it's one
You
too few. I think I need one right here as well.
exactly, yes.
Okay.
Don't
Well,
think.
let's give it a shot. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
but
Have I made a
how will
mistake?
we see? How will we see that our build is different?
Is this
Um,
is this when you're trying to deploy without a nav mesh?
uh, publish without any physical models in it. So like if you
Gotcha.
just wanted to publish
I know how to
like
force this error
on
then.
an image. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So git checkout
Yeah.
MySB custom spoke April 10th. Git add commit adding fix for spoke nav mesh publisher e not iterable push origin custom spoke April 10th. Okay, back to my computer's moving slow. Okay, I'm going to before I publish, I'm going to set up my Docker Hub. Actually, still have it in a separate window. Great, CE spoke. Spoke. Awesome. I'm going to once again create a new access token. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, Ritik, it's Docker Hub PWD.
Yes. Yeah, you got the suggestion.
Okay. I will do this off screen once again. Great. So to add my repository secret, I'm going to go to CE Spoke, run workflow, select custom spoke. Mike Moran, Mike Moran. Great, and I've initialized that. So let me clear up my tabs a little bit. It's a little bit chaotic in here. Oh, my CE dialog build failed. Where did it fail?
Okay. It's a problem with DNS utils, seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it seems like this netcat thing within DNS utils is having some trouble. I honestly don't know the last time that we've published to Dialog, published a major update, so it could just be that some of the latest stuff is maybe breaking. Um, so
right.
let me also just quickly monitor how the publishing is going with our Spoke instance here. Okay, looks like it's going up
I,
maybe a
I
little
re-
bit better.
yeah, I recently did a build on Spoke, so fortunately it worked correctly.
Hmm. It's looking good so
I changed
far.
the yes.
Well, let's stick with Spoke, and we'll do Spoke and Reticulum if everything goes well, and then we will finish up here. So it looks like we're on the build step now. Um, let's actually do the Reticulum while we're waiting on Spoke to finish, and then finally we can look back at our dialogue.
Okay, I found a comment.
Also curious why my CE dialogue became private. Make public.
Yeah, actually, I was curious because you set up the checkbox to private.
I didn't mean to. Do you think that likely wouldn't be an issue during the build process? It would likely be an issue when I'm trying to get. Oh, thank you, Rithik.
Yeah.
I just ran into this today, October 7th, 2023. Mm.
So seems like they were installing Bullseye where they're uh, failed with DNS utils installation. So they figured that they need to wipe all the APT caches and cache and then APT update.
Mm.
But this needs to be tested, tried and tested. So I think we can take this up in some other session if
Yeah,
possible.
likely we won't have time for that today, but good to know that there
No,
might be an issue for someone who's building a new dialogue pod. What's that, Imaginer?
I think the error referenced Retpack, actually, that was failing. Both DNS utils and Retpack were being installed at the same time, but it looks like it can't find an installation candidate for Netcat.
Hmm. Where are you seeing Retpack here?
Well, not Retpat, Pack Netcat,
Netcat.
Netcat.
I see. Sorry, I heard
Yeah,
Retpack.
no worries.
While we're waiting on Spoke to finish, I know it can take often as long as building hubs. I am going to just go ahead and update our Reticulum since that build finished. So we should be updating to 15 now. So, oh, or perhaps 16. Let's see. I'm gonna go back to here. Yeah, 16. Apologies. 16. I'm going to. Oh, and Spoke has just finished as well. So let's check out Spoke here. I should see, yep, tag 1. That's a good sign. I've just finished updating my Reticulum. Let's try Reticulum first, and then we'll update Spoke. So I'm just gonna open up a room, and we'll test the API issue once more and see if we can get any logs. Um, let's see if we can get any logs about our tenor API issue. So I'm going to go to place, GIF, no results, and still nothing. So the error, oh no, I do see some results here. So our console log was working better. Let's go back to our Reticulum media search and see how far we got. So we didn't get to entries. We got tenor API query was successful, decode successful, next successful. It seems like the entries is where we're getting hung up, the step between these two. So, Rithik, I think you're right that the return object results is not returning correctly, or it's this tenor API result to entry, which I actually don't know what that is. Could that potentially be another function?
Enu- yeah, enumeration map. So maybe that could also be a key which is coming.
Gotcha. So we know with the new format, our request was successful. That's good. So we've got this sorted out. We're able to make the request successfully, but the return object. Let's look at this once more. The response object, sorry, is not in the correct format that we're used to. So we do have to make some edits here to finish that up. But good to know that we are able to get some logs in Reticulum from there. So updates to Reticulum are successful. Let's try an update now to Spoke that we published. So SDC Spoke, let's go ahead and tag my own version here. So I'm going to go back to hcce.yaml. Going to look for stable latest and search until I find Spoke. Oh, I just passed it. I'm going to replace with mine and then tag 1. I'm also going to change the image pull policy to always. Cool. Gonna apply my YAML again. I should see my spoke pod restarting. Yep, spoke. A new pod is rolling out. My old one should be gone once that is finished. I'm sorry, folks. I'm gonna take a quick sip of water. So my spoke pod has updated. It looks like my old one is terminating. So let's go back and try going to spoke now. So let's force the issue, right? Imagine it should be if I delete all meshes and then try and publish,
Yep.
we should see the fix.
Save project. And publish.
E is undefined.
Okay. That
Okay.
is a little weird.
Wait, not that. But anyway, we can just check the source code as well. Editor.js.
So, it's the minified build, so
Oh, never mind.
might
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, we might not be able to find it so easily. Is there anything else you think we could do, Imaginer, to check that that's been customized?
Um, no, because that should have avoided the error. So that's a little concerning.
Let
And
me verify quickly that I am referencing CE Spoke. Yep, I am on CE Spoke 1.
Let's reload and check that again.
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, so it works.
huh. Well, it did work. And I guess it's
okay,
proper that we're not seeing any errors.
yep,
What happens if I
okay,
go into
well,
this scene now? What will
it should work,
it just won't
clearly.
have a nav mesh?
Yeah. Yeah, no nav mesh, no ground. Well,
Cool.
actually, it might still have a nav mesh if you didn't delete the floor plan. Yeah, so there is still
I
a
never
floor plan in
generated
there.
it. Gotcha.
Well, I don't know. But
I think
anyway, so now that works.
yeah, alrighty. So we got custom
Wow.
reticulum, custom spoke, dialogue build failed. We have 4 minutes remaining. Should we try and fix dialogue? I don't think we can fix dialogue in 4 minutes, but I'm curious if there's anything we could do to. It would feel just fantastic if we're able to get our, not this, if we were able to get the tenor API thing fixed.
Do we see next successful writer in our console in the pod?
We did. Let me see if I can bring that back up.
Okay.
Yeah, so here we go. We got tenor API, decode successful, next successful. We just didn't get entries successful.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now clearly makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Decoded res. Maybe we can print the decoded res value. Poison dot decode. Poison is, I think, it's a JSON, JavaScript library for JSON decode.
Gotcha.
Uh, yeah, I think today it won't be we won't be able to see the build in place, but
Well,
Yeah.
just go back to that API thing, because there was a list of keys that were they like valid in the new version 2. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, just um, see if there's anything about results. Uh, and I think
if the response object, the hyperlink,
Yeah, this one right here.
yes,
yeah,
I
just
didn't.
because
I
there
looked
was
at this earlier and I didn't see any results listed.
yeah,
Um,
but maybe there's something similar.
yeah. Let's look at the. This looks to be the old. Um,
yeah, response object and
I honestly think this is something that I think I don't know Elixir too well, but I'm pretty sure this is a way to remap the results from here, from this enumeration, um, onto a different type of data. So I'm pretty sure it's this that we need to look for here. And
Okay,
I don't know what this code is. What would this be? Um,
okay.
Let me see if I can just quickly find something in here. Ah, here we are. Okay. So this is some sort of method. This syntax right here is telling it to do some sort of method. And here we do see media referenced, which is not what we want, right? That's what it's telling us, the response object. Media has been rebranded to media formats, and the value for media formats is now a map rather than an array of maps. So I don't think we'll have time to go through it, but I think we would have to change this to media format, and then we would have to. Um, I'm like I said, I'm not the best at Elixir, but rather than going through an array of maps, we'll just have to go through a map to figure it out. So probably don't have time
Well,
for it here, but this would be the next place to edit here.
actually, that sounds like we maybe just don't need that function anymore. So maybe just try assigning um, results to result media. What was it? The new one? So entries, just set that to map or uh, map.get and the new API thing. What was it? Media underscore something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that.
Because it sounds like the new version is just already doing that tenor API results to entry function for us.
Mhm.
So maybe just get the media underscore whatever key.
I don't think it's going to be as simple as that, because I think just the way Elixir works, it's very specific. I think this, I would need to look just a little bit deeper into Elixir to, I think, be able to solve it in the time we have remaining.
Okay.
Sorry to stop when we're so close to things. Unless, Rithik, you're ready to swoop in with a solution.
no, not at the moment, but surely we can find out a good solution. Maybe in our collaboration days that we have tomorrow, where we discuss these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And our community could be,
That could be a good time. What time is that tomorrow? It's at noon, those, or maybe noon my time.
yeah, for me it's morning.
Yes.
Imagine,
I see it. It's oh wait, oh it says 1 a.m. my time.
oh,
Gotcha. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm
this thing
sorry.
was
I'm
just,
sorry to stop so close uh, to us finishing things, but I am coming kind of towards the end of my day here. So just to kind of recap for everyone here and who may be watching today, we walked through a couple of bits and pieces of addressing this tenor API issue and addressing some cores issues and also how to use Docker to run render HCC e.sh. But the big thing we spent on today was deploying customized versions of Dialog, Spoke, and Reticulum using the workflow that Mozilla has shared using Docker Hub and GitHub Actions. So the good news is these are the four main uh, code bases that Hubs has created, or the Hubs team, I should say. If we look here under stable latest, we can still see that there are some repos that are under the Mozilla Reality, um, under our, what's it called? Under our Mozilla Reality organization. However, these are all pretty much direct forks with build files in them. So there shouldn't be, I'm pretty sure Photonymonic, Coturn, Postgres are all pretty much direct forks of pretty popular and decently maintained repos. So today we covered the basically the code bases that were heavily authored or heavily customized by Hubs, by the Mozilla Hubs team, but the others should be pretty simple to go ahead and grab as well to be completely independent of Mozilla. Awesome. Thank you, Rithik, Imaginer, and Jua for hanging out today and for guidance through everything. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now.
Thank you,